everyone. Just like Julie mentioned, my name is Cindy Chinedu-Edoka. I am very excited to be moderating this panel as lifelong learning is a true passion of mine. I would also like to add that it truly can lay the foundation for success for years to come. So a little bit about myself. I graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a degree in political science, 2001, and then went on to pursue a Master's of Health Administration degree from Chapman and an MBA from Pepperdine. And as Julie mentioned, I am working senior product management, enhancing product visibility, and driving penetration into new markets. I also currently serve on the UCSB Board of Directors and currently the co-chair to the Inclusion and Partnerships Committee. It's truly been a wonderful experience and encourage alumni to endeavor to really serve on a board. You'll be happy that you did. Now with that, just wanted to kind of move on to our focus for the day. Our focus today is on lifelong learning and post-graduation options to honor your career. Today we have three alumni with us, John Frontera, Eric Zackerson, and Walter Bogan. First, I'd like to kick it over to Eric. Eric, would you share a UCSB graduating class, your current position, and a fun fact about yourself?
Sure. I actually got my PhD in 2017. I am a professor at UCSB in the Technology Management program. I also teach occasionally for PACE, and then I own a consulting firm named Effectiveness Consultants. Fun fact, I spent most of my summers growing up in Sweden. So my dad lived in Sweden, so I spent every summer and then my freshman year of high school and my 21st year.
Very, very good. Thank you. And Walter, I'd pass the podium over to you. Would you share your current position, fun facts about yourself, and your UCSB graduating class?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Walter Bogan. I'm a Director of Admissions Outreach and Diversity for the Graduate Division. I've been in that position for a little over a decade. I was in the class of 1994, Black Studies and Political Science. And I guess a fun fact for me is, believe it or not, I negotiated the draft contract for CC Sabathia of the New York Yankees, who just recently retired a couple of years ago. So,
very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. And John, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Portera. I'm the Senior Program Manager for Business and Management Programs at UC Santa Barbara Professional and Continuing Education. I've been in this role for a couple of years now, and before that, worked for several years in the renewable energy industry in sales, account management, and project management roles before moving on to UCSD. Fun fact about me is that I am an avid backpacker and tend to go on a couple big trips every year for several days at a time, and always looking for new places to do that at.
Great. Thank you, John. And so I'd like to kind of move on to the next phase. Each of you have pursued graduate education or a program certification. Can you tell us what factors contributed to your decision to pursue these programs and what surprised you about the experience? And I'll leave the floor to whoever would like to go first.
I'll go ahead and go first, if that's okay with the panel. So I guess prior to my role as the Director of Admissions Outreach and Diversity, I worked in the business of sports, and in particular representing Major League Baseball players as well as NBA players. So having a passion for education in the sports industry, I decided to get a master's in sports management, believe it or not. So for me, it was a matter of pretty much one, gaining more knowledge in the business of sports, and two, it was an opportunity to increase my profile within the industry. So I was pretty much able to make contacts, and I really learned a lot in those 2 years. And I think what surprised me the most in that program was the fact that it was very, very intense, right? So I was not only working for a sports agency at the time, full-time, but also going to school full-time. But it was great. It was good intensity because I was pursuing my passion and learning within my passion. So I think that's, I think that's the reason why I pursued a graduate education on my end.
Thank you, Walter.
So my path was kind of unusual. So I'd been a restaurant manager and restaurant owner for a long time, and was working at, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I had one child and another child on the way, and realized that I would likely not see my kids much in my current career. And so went back to get my graduate program, initially with the plan of going into academia. And so I got my master's in communication on my MBA, kind of not sure kind of what path I was going to go, and then got my PhD. But primarily it was kind of that idea of needing to pivot from the career I had. And I think the thing that was kind of most interesting, or that surprised me about the experience, was not necessarily how challenging it was, but how different that kind of thinking was from being in a management role, and being able to kind of, but it was also exciting because it got me really to expand the way that I think.
So professional certificate programs have come into play a couple times for me in my postgraduate life. When I graduated from UCSB in 2007, I was already having a difficult time knowing what my interests were professionally, what I wanted to do with myself. And then in 2008, there was a little bit of an economic downturn that really turned up the heat, and suddenly I found myself competing in the job market against people that had been in the workforce for years. At that time, I had been learning a little bit about climate change and what that meant as an existential crisis for humanity, and started to look for jobs in that sector. And living up in the SF Bay Area, there were a lot of companies in that industry, but I didn't find myself getting a lot of calls back. And almost certainly it was because I lacked professional experience. So started doing a little research and found a grant program that would fund my participation in a professional certificate program out of Laney College in Oakland, and learned quite a bit about the history, the economics, and the practical elements of installing rooftop solar systems. And at the time, I attended the program full-time, completed the courses in a semester. And the surprising thing to me was that even though that program prepared me to do the physical work of solar installations, it was very easy for me to pivot into the business side of operations. And as it turns out, the very first resume submission that I had put in with a company, I got a call back and a job offer on the sales side as a senior account manager. And years later, I found myself sort of pigeonholed into sales career path that I never specifically intended to do. And some of my roles had project management elements, and ended up taking courses in a project management certificate program with UCSB, which is also how I ended up finding the job that I'm currently working.
Thank you so much, John. Now, when some people think about extended learning or graduate school, John, you mentioned seeking a grant program, they think about depth. What are some ways that people can make it more affordable, in your opinion?
So personally, I'm not an expert on all of the different funding options that there are, and there are many. It takes some research. But what I will say, and maybe this won't blow any minds or anything, but I think it's critical to evaluate education opportunities as though they're an investment. We should be thinking about the outcomes, and we should be developing some good reasons why we want to pursue the courses and programs that we're looking at. What pathways are opening up in the short and the long term? What are the salary implications? geographically, where are the jobs in the field that you're considering located? And beyond that, is this something that needs to be learned through a formal program, or can it be something that you can skill up through self-guided programs that are available at low or no cost on the internet? Now, I've met several people in my career that, just as an example, had gone to law school, and after a few years of practicing, they realized that it wasn't the career trajectory for them, and they had to make a tough decision to transition to a new career, while still paying off debt. So all that is to say, when you really know what you're getting out of a program that you're considering, it becomes a lot easier to evaluate whether you're making a valuable investment or pointing in the wrong direction. And before you spend your energy and money, having a strong reason why you're pursuing that opportunity starts to feel a little bit like you can't afford not to.
So
Thank you, John.
yeah, that I think that hit some really key points, and it was one of the things that definitely spoke to me in thinking about, because I mean I already had a relatively solid career, and in thinking about what's the value in this, but certainly one of the concerns was, how am I going to pay for it? And so looking for those opportunities, I found surprisingly that it actually is, as far as the actual cost incurred, I mean, there's opportunity costs, and that if you're in school, you're not doing other things. But as John pointed out, ignoring those because you're going to reap the benefits. But there's a lot of ways to pay for it. So one of the ways that I found is, even in terminal master's degrees, even programs where you're just getting your master's, there's opportunities for funding. So for my master's degree in communication at Missouri State University, everyone's required to take public speaking. And so pretty much everybody that's working on their master's in communication is brought in as a teaching assistant. And so that funds your education. So you teach a couple classes. Additionally, there's a lot of opportunities for research assistantships, all sorts of stuff like that internally that you can find. But you can also find other opportunities. I've had a number of friends, so one thing certainly is, if you're in a job, if you're in a career, talk to your managers and your supervisors, because it is really common for major companies, even smaller companies, to see the value of having somebody with an advanced degree on their team, and they'll help you fund it. You can also look at those programs that are stretched out a little bit more. So there's a lot of ways that would surprise you to pay for your education that you might not have thought about. That it is really common for people to get their master's and certainly their PhDs with very little out of pocket, if not actually getting a job, though often not the best paying job in the process.
Yeah, I think John and Eric pretty much hit it on the head, right? So no matter the program, you should always be looking to receive funding in some shape or form. So for any program, especially for a PhD, you should be asking questions like, do all students who are accepted to your program receive funding? If so, what does that look like, right? So do all students receive the same amount of funding? If not, what determines who gets what? So again, John and Eric pretty much hit it on the head. You should always be asking about funding, fellowships, grants, TA-ships or whatnot. And I think a real good tip that Eric mentioned, especially if you're pursuing a master's or a professional certificate or degree, is looking within your current employment as well. There's funding out there everywhere. So just keep asking. The worst case scenario is saying no, we don't have funding, but you definitely need to ask, because that's a very, very important. You want to be as debt-free as possible when you complete that degree or program.
Thank you, John, Walter, and Eric, and very, very, very great points. I just wanted to also add, in the search of the program, once you come to making a decision that it is the right program for you, the very next step, the very best thing to do after that is to identify how you're going to fund it. Go to the school, go to your employer, look at your own individual finances, look at your local credit union, and again, this is after you've justified the importance. It has to be, to John's point, really, really valuable to the point where no matter the cost, it's something that you're going to lose on if you don't actually achieve it. And that's how that's how it would help you to kind of identify if that's going to be the right angle for you to take. And with that, so Walter, what are the most common reasons people choose to continue with graduate education, and what are graduate schools, in your opinion, looking for in their applicants?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's many reasons why individuals are going back to school, right, to get a graduate degree in one sense or another. So I think a few would be, I would think personal growth, right? Just a personal situation where you want to just kind of gain more knowledge in a particular area or whatnot. I think Eric and John mentioned that career advancement is another, right? So you're at a job and you want to get to the next level in some capacity. So I think that is a great opportunity to go back to school to do that as well. Again, along those lines is better employment opportunities, not necessarily within your company, but maybe you would like to pivot right into another industry or whatnot. So that would be a great opportunity as well. And the big thing for me is just more money, right? Everyone likes to make more money, so I think it's a great opportunity to again gain more knowledge, get yourself to the next level, whether that be position wise, and with that comes more salary or more money, hopefully. So I think those are some areas that individuals choose to go back to get a graduate degree. So as far as graduate programs, and I'll speak specifically from like UC Santa Barbara standpoint, right? It just all depends on the program. For example, a PhD in sociology or whatnot is going to be a little bit different than an MBA, just in regards to what a particular program is looking for or a university. So for a PhD, you should probably be focused on a particular area that you want to continue to research. For example, the lack of educational resources in underserved communities, for example, if you're going into education. So I think a program like that wants to see that you understand why you want to study in that particular area, and and why that program, right? Why that faculty member, So I think those are very, very important. So when you're looking at, but at the same time, they're looking for a diverse population as well, right? So an individual with diverse background. So that's very, very important. In terms of professional degrees, MBA or law school, sometimes they want to see you think outside the box a little bit, right? So back in the day, 10, 20 years ago, it was a situation where maybe if you're going for a law degree, they wanted to see an English major or a political science major or whatnot. Now, they want to see individuals that are thinking outside the box. Maybe you're a theater major, maybe you're in the STEM discipline or whatnot. So again, all around, programs want to see a diverse population in their programs, but specifically like for PhDs, it's a situation where you want to focus on one particular area and just kind of dig deep in that particular sense of just studies in regards to your graduate studies or that particular area. So.
Thank you, Walter. And over to Eric. What led you to decide to go back to school? And what limitations did you face in your career before getting your PhD?
So I kind of hinted at this a minute ago. It really was just a decision around. I'd been in that career for a number of years. I'd done pretty well. I'd opened up a number of restaurants, some more successful than others. But it was really kind of paying attention to the amount of time and energy that I had to devote to kind of family and my kids. And so looking for ways that I could have a little bit healthier work-life balance. And I was able to give back to my community pretty well as a restaurant owner, but it being kind of, especially once I started the process, and that kind of intellectual kind of vigoration was really interesting and fun to me. And so once I started, it just seemed natural to continue. And I originally kind of went and got my master's in communication and my MBA concurrently because I wasn't sure the path I was going to go. And So I ended up doing both, and then went into organizational communication for a variety of reasons. One, it opened up doors into opened up more doors than just academia for me. So in consulting, and then I was raised, my father was an organizational development consultant, so I felt an affinity for that and wanted to look for ways to work with him. And so there was just a lot of interesting opportunities and the reason I liked communication specifically is it was much more collaborative, much more kind of cooperative in nature than the business programs that I've looked at, which were much more kind of competitive in nature. So it just seemed like a natural fit for where I wanted to go, which I think is an important thing to think about. Additionally, when you're thinking about graduate programs or graduate school, it's not just a matter of I want to study this, but does that kind of fit with your own personality and your own kind of identity? And second, what do you want to do with it, right? That if you are wanting to go into academia like I was, looking specifically for programs that are going to set you up for that is important. If you're wanting to if you're just looking to be a better manager than kind of a base level MBA, but if you're looking to kind of go into consulting, what programs might lead into that, and it's paying attention to not just what programs have, but also where do people tend to go from that, and does the culture fit? Are you going to feel comfortable there? Because it's intense. And so the reason I came to UCSB is I'd met a couple of the faculty and met some of the students and realized that it just really made sense to the way that I thought, the way that I got along with people. And so it's a key part of that decision was, does this feel right? Does this make sense to who I am?
Thank you so much. John, can you tell us about PACE, UCSB's professional and continuing education program? And are there any certifications you'd like to highlight?
Sure, absolutely. So our department has been around for several decades, and our mission is really to extend university services to the community that we exist in. And that would also include alumni. And what our goal is to provide essential skills and expertise that are needed in order to compete in today's job market. So we have well over a dozen programs in different specialization areas that prepare folks for one career path or another. They're all taught by professionals that have experience in the subject matter that they're teaching about. So aside from just the academic theory of these various subjects, there's a lot of practical wisdom that is shared by the instructors. They are affordably priced relative to a full-on graduate degree program, and scheduled flexibly, meaning a lot of evening classes that tend to work well for people that are working at the same time. Definitely, folks should know that there is pricing discounts for alumni and staff. And a couple programs that I would highlight that are leading to the strongest career outcomes in today's job market would be our digital marketing program. Recently been accredited by an organization called the Digital Marketing Institute, as well as the American Marketing Association. So students completing our classes are eligible to sit for an exam, and upon passing that exam would have an additional certification that would signal to employers their readiness to step into a digital marketing position. So the curriculum in that program helps to prepare people to plan, budget, optimize, execute a comprehensive digital marketing strategy, and then assess the performance and make adjustments. again, it's a career path that has strong employment opportunities that are growing all the time. The World Economic Forum lists this as number 4 on their list of top 20 jobs that are growing, having growing demand. And about 3/4 of leaders in businesses in the US rank a lack of digital skills as the number 1 obstacle for their companies integrating in the digital economy. So that curriculum is designed with a global advisory board, leaders from companies like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Microsoft, IBM, and about 35 other leading brands. And that curriculum is updated biannually. Another certificate that we offer is in project management, which is another growing profession. They're great paying jobs with a 6-figure salary average in California. The curriculum is aligned with the PMP, the Project Management Practitioner certification. And the skill sets are helpful across all industries. There are projects in just about every single company you would work for, including our day-to-day lives. The courses that I've taken have been extremely helpful in just random home improvement projects, as an example. And it's definitely something that an employer likes to hear you speak about. Couple other programs that I'll just rattle off real quick would be our professional accounting program. Courses beginning with financial accounting practices, managerial accounting, auditing, and taxation. Also help prepare our students for career accounting pathways in their careers, an area where there are just so many opportunities right now with well-paying jobs. And then the last one that I'll point out, and folks should check out our webpage for a current list of classes and programs. And that would be our human resource management program. Helps not just folks that are looking to be HR specialists, but if someone's looking to start their own business, it's absolutely critical to understand the fundamentals of business law and the legal aspects of employment practice. So these courses are super accessible, no admissions process or anything like that. And if there's an area where you're looking to upskill, it's available for you.
Thank you, John. Walter, what insights or tips can you provide to students to help them make the most out of their graduate education?
To make the most out of their graduate education, I think it's just a matter of, and I think Eric might have pointed this out earlier. I think just making certain, I think John as well, making certain, that, you're pursuing something that you're passionate about. And in particular, when it comes to a PhD, you may be spending 5, 6, 7 years in that, particular department or that particular area, doing research, right? And then the cost, right? If you're going into a professional degree like an MBA or a law degree, or maybe even a certificate degree, as the panelists, talked about earlier, it's a cost thing as well. So you want to definitely do your research, but once you're in there, I think it's about work-life balance, right? I would assume that you're into the program, you're passionate about it, you're going to do well, but definitely, it's the work-life balance. And I know it's easier said than done in most cases, right? But it's very, very important. You'll see that you'll strive and you'll do a lot better and feel a lot better, when you're able to balance those two things. So I think the biggest thing for me is work-life balance. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I love to let prospective students know, especially about UC Santa Barbara, right? With the San Ynez Mountains on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other. So it's a great place to go to graduate school. Graduate school is going to be difficult no matter where you go. but it's good after you spent 10, 12 hours doing research to be able to open up those doors and have the Pacific Ocean in your backyard to excel a little bit. So again, I think the work-life balance is very important.
Thank you, Walter.
Yeah, I'd like to add one other kind of key thing, and I agree. I think that's a huge part, Walter. I think another thing to always think about is, especially if you're going to grad school, I think it's important at any level of school, but it's a lot of it is about the networks you build while you're there. There's a reason why Harvard and Stanford MBA programs are expensive as they are. It's not because you get that much better of an education, but it's because you're surrounded by people that are going to be going. It opens up huge doors as you go forward. But that doesn't mean you can't get that same thing in any program. So it's a matter of building relationships with both your cohort and those around you, but also with the faculty that you're working with, because they know people. And that's one of the keys to your future success, is building those relationships and managing those as you go forward.
Thank you so much, Eric. And Eric, I wanted to ask you, can you share insights on what specifically contributed to you selecting communication, PhD in communication, as opposed to PhD in neuroscience?
Yeah, well, so there's in the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. So, I look at, leadership as a relationship, and how we as leaders and managers manage that role, knowing that it's part you, it's part them, and then we do that space between. And so I had a good friend of mine back in Missouri, was a industrial organizational psychologist. He's like, Eric, man, go to IO Psych. That's what we study. I have friends in management and org behavior. They're like, go that way. And what I found is that communication just made sense to the way I thought about it. Whereas, IO Psych is really looking kind of at the individual. Sociological organizational sociology is looking, broader. Management tends to look at the top down, whereas organizational communication looks at the connections between people, which is, I think, where things happen. And so that was kind of one of the key things. And then why here? A big part of it was I met some key faculty. And then interestingly, my master's thesis, I used boundary spanning as a key concept, and bona fide groups. And bona fide groups, the kind of concept was heavily developed by two of our UCSB Comm faculty, Linda Putnam and Cynthia Stoll, and then Dave Siebold, who was my PhD advisor, was somebody that I'd met. And so really just kind of connected with them, and then connect with some students.
Thank you. And now the last question goes to John. John, would you share insights on how someone could approach their employer asking for support in funding their degree program or their certificate program?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I mentioned a moment ago that leaders at just about every company are recognizing that there's a skills gap, and that it's an impediment to their business's success. So, as with any sales pitch, you want to speak in terms of benefits to your employer. So, I would be talking with them about, whatever opportunity I would be considering, and how that would impact my ability to be an advantage to the company. So it's an investment for us as learners, and it's certainly an investment for your employer to help you be better prepared for the challenges that their business is facing.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. I know we have a little bit of time, so wanted to just kind of ask John, Walter, and Eric, in your opinion, if you had to highlight one or two key takeaways that was really, really fundamental to your graduate school education and your success following, what would you say those one or two to be?
I think the primary one is that idea of networks. That's how I've excuse me. That's how I've moved to be successful post-graduation, was the relationships I made in my graduate program have opened doors post-graduation. So really going into a program that kind of fits your personality and fits your needs, and then managing those relationships and using them for opportunities going forward. I think those are the two things I would offer.
Thank you.
I agree with Eric. Yeah, networking is huge, but I would say for myself, it was just pursuing my passion. And you'll hear me say that time and time again, especially if you get to know me, is just pursue your passion, right? And it's okay to have multiple passions, right? So for me, it was the business of sports, baseball in particular. And then it's education as well. So I was able to combine that. And you'll see that when you're pursuing your passion, you'll see a lot of options. A lot of options will open up, right? So you'll see a lot of opportunities. But the biggest thing is you'll fulfill, what you're, that will make you happy, basically, in terms of your pursuit in a particular program, a career, or whatever it may be. So I think for me, it was okay to have multiple passions in terms of the business of sports and education. And in both aspects, it's about getting individuals to the next level. So I think that's what it is for me.
Thank you, Walter.
Fully agree with both of you that the networking piece is critical. Pursuing your passion, absolutely, and just generally, be a lifelong learner. Don't stop opening those doors. If it's starting a conversation, that's where the networking is taking place. If it's pursuing your passion, looking for new opportunities to spend more time there and be more closely aligned with it. So kind of trailing off here, but really think it's going to be powerful to just keep on moving forward and looking for where the opportunities are.
Thank you. And Eric, you mentioned networking. So what tips can you share on how someone can develop their networking capabilities or enhance it to sort of, benefit them or become advantageous for them as they pursue graduate education or, advance in their careers?
Yeah, so I think there's a few key pieces there. There's some kind of prior to grad school, some during grad school, and then how to manage it after. So I recommend with my undergrad students pretty regularly, I was like, reach out to people that are professionally where you want to be and chat with them. But also if you're applying, especially if you're looking at like a PhD program, professional masters, maybe less so because usually they're big enough, it's harder to find people. But if you're looking at a PhD program, reach out and see if you can have conversations with some of the key faculty, some of the key decision makers there. It's one of the reasons, I think it's one of the key things that got me into this program is I went to the National Communication Association and set up like 15-minute chats with a bunch of people. So reach out, and then again, reach out to those people that are professional in your grad school program. Be looking for conversations to have. Don't just kind of go to your class and be done. Reach out to your faculty, ask them if you can grab, go to their office hours and chat with them, grab coffee with them. Same things with your coworkers, or not your coworkers, your fellow students. And then be looking beyond, even as a grad student, reaching out to people that are in the field where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, asking them to have a chat, asking them about them. It's not about the asking, I want this. It's about finding out who they are and where they are. And then with those that you resonate with, continue to follow up. Let them know what you've got going on, and you'd be amazed at kind of the things that can happen. And, forecasting what you want to do. So when you're talking to people, go, I'm really excited. I want to go into X, Y, or Z. And again, you don't necessarily have to ask them to say, help me do it. But are you talking about it and you putting it out there, it significantly increases the chances that it's going to happen.
Thank you, Eric. I also want to add, participate in or reaching out to trade associations or areas that you like to go into in the future would be another great avenue to develop those networking relationships for you. And with that, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions.
As a reminder, you can drop your questions in the chat. And while we're giving people time to do that, I will just, for purely selfish reasons, ask Jonathan if there's a staff discount on extended education programs.
Yeah, absolutely. So UC staff are eligible for a 25% discount on tuition, and alumni discount is also 15%.
Thank you.
Reach out anytime if you'd like to chat about some of the programs we offer.
Will do.
Any questions?
Come on, y'all. One question. I know there's some questions out there.
So we'll take, while the audience is still thinking about questions to ask, we'll take any last thoughts from the panel. Any other areas you'd like to highlight as key takeaways for the audience to have?
I would be in trouble if I didn't mention the MTM program. So be aware, and this is kind of another kind of key thing, thinking about the opportunities, especially if you're thinking about professional degrees. There is, people automatically think of MBA or law degree, but there's all sorts of other variants on that. You can get masters of public health or masters of public administration, all sorts of stuff. And UCSB has an amazing master's program. It's accelerated one-year program focused on mostly people in technology, that we have students that come from philosophy and English and all sorts of things, going into kind of learning how to manage within technology spheres. So most of them, I think we've got well above an 80% placement rate. It's a one-year accelerated program. But thinking outside the box and thinking it just doesn't have to be, this or this, but looking right in your backyard for some other opportunities.
Thank you. Walter?
Let me see. Well, I know there's been some in the chat. I've been chatting with Carla, just in regards to my background in sports management, and just to kind of give a little bit of background. Yes, I did my master's program at the University of San Francisco. I was the first cohort in their Southern California cohort. They have two programs, one in Southern California in Orange County and one in San Francisco, of course. And it was a great program for me at the time because it was a situation where you only needed to go to class one day a week. It was like a 4-hour class one day a week. So it allowed me to continue to work full time at the sports agency representing professional baseball players. Allowed me to travel to like spring training and to the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, and still, be able to, take the courses and complete the master's degree in sports management. So, if you have any questions just in regards, not only graduate programs at UC Santa Barbara, right, but, if you have some interest in sports management, definitely contact me, and I'll put my information. I think my information should be out there, but I'll put it in the chat as well.
Thank you, Walter. John?
We may have touched on this a bit, but definitely I think it can be a major advantage to audit classes, speak to people that are already working in a profession years down the road, and ask them questions about what they wish they would have known when they were evaluating their options. And you never know what you might learn from conversations like that.
Thank you. And I just want to add research, because information is power. Whether you get the information from your professors, from your peers, from your colleagues, research the program that you're trying to get into, the career path that you're trying to follow, what the earning capacity is, and if it's really something you want to do. Perhaps you're not an office person, perhaps you'd like to be out in a field. And so really important to kind of think about the profession in addition to the graduate program that you're seeking to pursue. So that way it's a more in tune alignment. So there are no major surprises when you actually get into the role. And with that, if there are no questions, then giving everyone 9 minutes back on your calendar.
So I would love just to take a couple of minutes. First, to thank the panelists. Really, thank you so much for joining us today in what is a very busy time for you all, to share your insights and to provide inspiration and encouragement for those who are thinking about graduate school or extended learning opportunities or joining the PACE program. I really, really appreciate it. I also appreciate Cindy's time. You did an awesome job with moderation. So thank you for all your great questions and for your patience. And then a shout out to Eric, of course, for the incredible work that you do with the UCSB Comms Department Alumni Council. He's the chair there. I, hope that all the alumni on this this meeting really think about ways that they can get more involved with the Alumni Association, or just getting back to your departments. Creating mentorship and opportunities for shared learning with either your peers or students. Great way to do that. And I want to thank the Alumni Affairs team, Soleil and Alex, for dropping this into the chat. But you can go on to Gaucho Network and continue these conversations and develop these types of relationships with peers who are experts in their field, who have gone through the graduate school experience, who have done certifications. Strike up a conversation and learn, right? We know how important networking is to our career path and development. So I strongly encourage you, if you haven't already, and I know quite a few haven't, please sign up and register with the Gaucho Network.